Give it some sound. Build up a world from the words that we found. Putting pen to page, we just let it flow. Then tell them the tales that only we know. The fiction cartel. Ask us anything. The fiction cartel. We're here to help you. Come on, join us. You know you want to give it.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Fiction Cartel. We're going to have some extra fun tonight because as you notice, we now have we have 7 seats up here. Started with 2, went to 3, went to 5? Oh, excuse me. And now we're up to 7. And I'm glad because I don't have a bigger room. But thank you all for showing up and doing this. And it's special tonight because Bendragon, who is part of our community, and he is starting to write himself, and he's like, I have questions that I want answered. We're like, awesome. Then you get to be in charge next time and ask all the questions. So before we start, I want to make sure that everyone gets a chance so you guys can tell everybody who you are. And we'll start with Coomer.
Me.
You.
I happen to write a few things. Sometimes they go together. Sometimes they're interesting. I tend to write mostly high adventure fantasy and historical fiction, kind of in the historical urban fantasy, as some people may call it. And that's my book right down there that's published, The Dark Device of the Great Chasm. It's the first one that I put out on Substack. The sequel is coming out on Substack, chapter by chapter. See, other than that,
I got a hard copy. Oh, I should probably hold it up the right side up, huh? That's my plug for my friend. It's a good book. Okay.
But other than that, I tend to go in about 1,000 different directions at once. So to me, genre has no meaning. So, I'll go anywhere.
Fine. Ian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Ian Dunmore. So I've been on Substack for almost exactly a year now. My year anniversary just passed. I write what people describe as literary realist fantasy. It has more of an angle toward, I try and leverage realism, leverage history and stuff like that to write the kind of fantasy that I do. I have a certain principle that wonder and awe, especially found in fantasy, kind of starts from the ground up. So it really excites me to find the small stuff and then kind of build higher to the big things like dragons and that sort of thing. So really excited to be a part of this panel. I've written 20 short stories for Substack. I have the draft of a novel that I'm still editing through. Right now it's way too long, but one day that will see the light of day, hopefully in the next year or two. And for the holiday season, I'm taking those 20 stories and I'm compiling them into a collection. There will be 3 extras there. I really wish that I had a copy or something that I could put under this chair like Oprah, but I do not. So all I can do is type it up verbally here. So yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Ben, I'm going to leave you for last so you can describe who you are. Can you go? Let's go to Eric.
All right.
In Salden's Forge, the way I describe it is that I write epic fantasy in bite-sized pieces. But much like my friend Ian, I'm intensely interested in historical principles and historically based world building. And so because I tend to write far too slow for my own good, I tend to write kind of about history more generally and, the medieval world or medieval warfare or even just fantasy narrative in general and storytelling principles. whenever I'm not writing fiction. So I've got one complete serial that's out on Substack already called the Samizot, which is like, I think in the same vein as some of the stuff that Coomer writes. It's a adventure fantasy, kind of a lone gunman, but in a fantasy medieval setting. 10 episodes. No, yeah, 10 episodes, and each episode is actually a standalone story too, so people can read it in any order and still get the whole picture. So, if I had my act together a little bit better, I'd be able to put that underneath my chair. But I'm still slowly chipping away at the mountain of getting that published. But it'll get there.
Awesome.
It'll get there.
Scoot.
Hello. I definitely look exactly like my uncanny likeness. I, for whatever reason, can't figure it out. I'm sorry. I missed the introductory question. What's the general, just an introduction we're talking
I just
about?
want to know about you. I want everyone to know who you are. So.
All right. I'm Scoot. I write at Gibberish. I write science fiction and fantasy. I've been writing at Gibberish since January of 2023, so it's been almost 3 years now. Got a slew of serials, science fiction. Just finished the fantasy serial Find the Black Page, and I like doing squirrely things with it and changing it and taking what you expect and doing something slightly different. So it's fun to write. It's fun to have fun with it, to surprise audiences, and I'm really happy to be here with all these great folks.
Awesome. Delania?
Okay, I'm Lisa Norman. I write as Delana Marr, and I wear a few different creative hats: writer, publisher, teacher. I help authors build stories and platforms that reflect who they are. And I've been writing since I was a kid, and most of my adult life has been spent helping writers and computers learn to get along and play well together. I have a no stress policy in my life, so I have no stress creativity, and trying to live without overwhelm. There you go.
Awesome. I'm going to make a request. Delana, Lisa, could you mute the audience, their mics, please? And so we can minimize feedback. Benjamin, do you want to let everyone know who you are?
All right. I am Bendragon, or Bendragon on Substack, Benjamin in real life, or whatever people call me. I'm good with lots of names. I'm a avid member of the Life of Fiction community. I've got my wristband that I wear every day. You can see it. I've ever since I've been a kid, I've wanted to write a story. I've written rough drafts in college not college, in school. Haven't really gone anywhere with those. I always reread them and realized they really sounded bad. So that I'm hoping to get a novel together and get that started and going. And yeah, that's just a snapshot into me. Cool.
And I'm Jamie Buckley. I write over at Life of Fiction and jamiebuckley.com. And that's pretty much it. Oh, now my neighbor's going to chime in. You hear that piano? Okay. Well, this is just life. So we'll just try to do the very best we can. Anyway, so I'm excited because Ben has questions to help him start his journey. So he submitted to me a list of 8 questions. I don't know how many we're going to get through, but Benjamin, how I'd like to do this is you pick whichever question you want. You can start from the top, and you just go ahead and pick whoever you want to answer those questions. Sound good for everybody? Okay.
Sure. There is a right answer to who you want to answer these questions.
Yeah, that's scary because I don't really know Ian or Eric very well.
Well, that's okay. No. That's okay. You ask him, and then
we'll change that.
And then, yep, that's why we're doing this. And this way we can have everybody get a chance to answer each of those questions. Okay?
All right. Well, okay. I'll ask Eric this one. when starting a book or a story or something.
I'm going to mute
Really
mine.
loud piano. When starting a book or story, what should a writer plan intentionally, and what should they allow to develop organically?
I think a lot of my writer
Jesse?
friends here will
You need to mute your mic.
tell you the frustratingly true answer for a lot of these probably similar questions is that it depends. And that it always depends. And it depends on the story, it depends on the writer, it depends on the process. And one thing I'll say to you, Ben, right off the bat is one of the most important things you need to do as you, begin, just on the kind of the writing journey is learning your process and learning what works for you. And learning that, really try to be as intentional as possible about it and experiment. Scoot can tell you a lot about experimenting and trying new things and, ways to kind of learn your own brain and how you write and how you think about stories, because it's really going to depend. So that's the big caveat, I think, over all of this, and it's a bit frustrating and it's going to undermine what I'm about to say. But if you have an idea for a story, no matter how big or how small it is, there's probably something there, some kernel of an idea that's most exciting to you, or that's at the heart of the story. And maybe that's the moral of the story. Maybe that's the final scene that you think is going to be really, really epic. Maybe it's just the premise and it's the beginning and you have no idea where it's going to go, whatever. Right? So start from there. And then what I would do, again, when I'm creating a story, I think of how can I make that thing that excites me about the story as interesting or as emotionally resonant or as big as possible, and then kind of build around that. So sometimes I'm building from the end and then I'm kind of planning a story towards the beginning. Sometimes I have the premise and I'm what's the most interesting place I can go next? And as I do that, I tend to plan my stories out. I tend to kind of know the end before I start writing much of anything. I tend to outline a lot. So I tend to plan in that regard, where I kind of know the overall major moments, but I don't really plan scenes. I don't really plan dialogue necessarily. I don't plan descriptions. That stuff is stuff I kind of all just discover on the way. And I think most writers tend to discover that stuff along the way once you you get into it, once your imagination is there in the story. So that's kind of as succinct an answer as I can give you. It's it's going to depend. I would start with planning what the most important thing is in terms of the idea, the crux of the idea, the heart of the story, that as you first envision it, that gets you excited. And then from there, try to fuel that fire, but then discover a lot along the way and try to have fun with it as we go, and be ready to pivot, because you might find something more interesting along the way, as happens a lot.
Cool.
All right.
So Ben in the audience has a question. He would like to know how many of us are plotters.
Okay, that piano is not me.
I think that one's me. My dad's playing upstairs.
Tell Terry to come down and join us then.
So do you think outlining is important, is what Ben is asking?
Yeah, so I actually thought of this, and I was thinking of this as Eric was saying what he was. Sometimes they'll put on a spectrum writers running from, over here would be so-called pantsers, they write from the seat of their pants, and over here are plotters, who they have to know all the way down to the most granular detail what's going to happen. So Stephen King is an absolute pantser. He needs to begin with a blank page, and he's written this before and he's written about it. And if he has any constraint put on him before that, then it's suffocating and he can't do it. But one of the results of that is that he's written stories where he reaches the ending and literally doesn't know what's going to happen. And there are stories that he's actually said that he's abandoned because he didn't know what the ending was going to be. There's a room that everyone keeps walking into and dying, and then more and more people, and then the FBI come and they keep dying, and then he's but I never figured out what was in the room. So that's still in the wastebasket. And then on the other side, there are the plotters, and those ones at the extreme just know absolutely everything. So, like Robert Ludlum, who wrote the Jason Bourne series, the book series, he was like this and wrote everything down super, super detailed. And the original book for the Bourne Identity involved like the JFK assassination and all these other things. And it was very detailed, and all the dates and everything were perfect. There were no plot holes whatsoever. But sometimes when you do that, then you haven't left yourself kind of opportunities to, explore or to indulge something or to kind of digress off the river up to a different tributary where you kind of see something shiny, so to speak. And Neil Gaiman described it as, he says, it's kind of like you're standing on a ridge and there's a misty valley in front of you. And then way out there, you can see where it rises, and that's your destination. And you don't know what's in the mist between you, but you can see the places where the land kind of rises out of the mist a little bit. And so Eric and I refer to those when we're kind of ideating at the beginning of a project, because we often do that together. We call those islands in the mist. So we say, here's where it starts. I know where I want it to be. I know how I want it to end. The guy gets the girl or whatever. And then there's an island in the mist in the middle where, he loses his dog. And I don't know how I'm going to get from point A to point B or point B to point C, but I want A, B, and C. And so that's great because that kind of becomes the scaffolding that you can grab onto. And so to answer the question, Ben in the audience, whether an outline is important, it's kind of, is it important to you? You know what I mean? It's not important at all to someone like Stephen King, but it's incredibly important to Robert Ludlum. So yeah, it again, it comes down to kind of your style.
Anybody else?
I can kind of echo that. I use different terminology. I call it tentpoles, but I know where my ending is going to be. I know where my start is. Now I'm going to get there. Hey, let's go find out. Somewhere in the middle, I kind of have, okay, I know where the ending roughly is, and I'm willing to throw it away if necessary. And then I'll start. And because everything I write is serial fiction, everything. I put it in one installment, and then I might get a little bit into some outlining, sort of, but not quite. It's still, even inside my installments, I'll do tentpoles, and I'll go, okay, I know where my starting hook is. I know where my cliffhanger is going to be. I know what I want to happen. Let me toss out some tentpoles. I know what I want to occur in here. Now let's just go. And then I see what the character's got to say about it. Sometimes the main character has a lot to say about it. Sometimes not very much.
Awesome.
But it's sometimes, and I found that if I write a full outline and try and get real deep into an outline, the only value it has is it gives me an excuse to throw something away so I can go back to doing the tentpoles. So,
what about you, Lisa?
I'm one of those people who, if I outline, I did experiment with outlining, and I did some beautiful outlining, and I know all those techniques. That bores me. Once I've got the outline done, I know the whole journey, and now I don't even want to write the book. So,
wow.
You mentioned the plotters and you mentioned the pantsers, but the new term for the middle is the plantsers.
That's
and I
me.
think I'm kind of getting, I'm towards the pantser side, but I'm getting a little more like a plantser.
So I'm smack dab
like
in the middle.
Tentpoles.
I'm smack dab in the middle because I do a frame. So I have an idea for a story. And then the first thing that goes through my mind that I have to solve before anything else is, how do I want my readers to feel at the end when everything's over? Once I have that and I design the ending, then I know how, for the most part, how I have to get there to that point. So I always work my stories backwards. But I do a general frame, but that once I have the general frame and I know, okay, well, during this story, I want to have, like Coomer, the ABC, and it might be ACB in different combinations. And then I am really, really addicted to red herrings. Oh gosh, it's my drug. But then from that, once I got that general frame, then it's like, throw it out. And now let's talk with the characters and see what they think of it. And I give myself the freedom to go wherever the heck I want to go. And if it breaks through some of that frame or I have to remodel and go another direction, I allow myself to do that. But I start with the frame so that I have an encapsulated project, but then I just go and play in that encapsulated project and just have fun. So I think I'm smack dab in the middle. So next question.
Did we hear what Scoot is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Scoot.
Scoot's
Yeah,
good.
it's hard to say. I think I definitely lean in the planning direction. I mean, I don't know. I'll be the contrarian on the panel. I'll say that I think the distinction between plotters and pantsers is less than I think we make it out sometimes as a community of writers. When we're day one, you sit down to a blank page and you're going to write something. You got to find a way that works for you to get a draft done. Sometimes that's going to mean you're going to outline. Sometimes that means you're not going to outline, and you just got to get an idea out. I've done both, and it just depending on what story it is, depending on how the mood strikes me, whatever. But then when you go to editing, when you hire an editor, when you're revising it yourself, you've got to make all of these ideas coherent. So you've got to go back through it and either put scaffolding around it or reorder ideas and concepts and structures, scenes maybe even. And you're gonna. It's not going to look like like you're in school and you're doing a bullet point outline. It's going to look like kind of a skeleton with like big organs hanging off of it, and you got to put it in the right place and Frankenstein your story together. So you're going to be using elements of both. They're both skills, I would say, and you need to have both skills to be able to write in general. So that's a nuance I'll introduce to the conversation.
Awesome.
You just set up what I was about to say anyway, is because I'm curious if this happens to anyone else. So I'll outline, right? I have my ideas. I start to outline. I start doing bullet points, and there's not really much of a process for it. Like I could be 5 bullets deep and then find the really important thing, or it's a whole paragraph in one bullet. It's totally messy. It's just like thoughts getting out there. But I'm not worrying about prose. No one's going to see it. I'm just kind of vomiting the thoughts, kind of beat by beat a little bit. And what will often happen is I'll get to a moment where characters are talking to each other, and I might have even said, they're talking to each other about this, and then I think of some important moment where the conversation is going to turn, there's going to be some kind of introduction of drama, and then I end up writing out that line of dialogue, and then I end up writing out the next line of dialogue, and then the next line of dialogue, and now I'm like 14 bullet points deep, and at some point I realize I've written most of the conversation, and then because I want to make sure the tone is coming across, I'm like adding kind of different markers or body language or, the he said, she said kind of stuff. And really now I'm just writing a scene. And next thing I know, I'm just writing prose. I'm not in bullet points anymore. And I write it and it feels good. I'm very much in the story. And then I scroll back to the top and see all these, the bullet points of a madman's thought dump. And then I go fix that. So I kind of write the second half first, but it's because I'm starting with an outline, quote unquote. But by the time I get a little bit of traction, I'm writing the prose. I'm writing the draft. And I love it when that happens because I often don't notice when it happens. But it's also just like perfect proof that even though I kind of call myself an outliner, like, the outline will never go from scene 1 to the end and be complete without me at some point, like cracking through the ice and falling into the story world.
Well, I'm curious about something. So you sparked something, Eric. So I'm wondering, do any of you write characters that you've had for a very, very long time? Because you're talking about writing the dialogue. And for me, I could take it, you guys could submit something to me and I could put it in my world. And I've spent enough time with all of my characters since 1990. I know I just got to insert certain characters and the dialogue's just going to get written. I don't even have to sweat it. It just flows. And I'm wondering, do any of you have that experience with your characters? You know your characters that well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's funny, Jamie. For me, I feel like characters, for me, dialogue is actually one of the easiest things. And for me, it's actually the point at which characters become real. They become actual humans. And then suddenly I know everything about them. Before that, they're a little bit nebulous.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're a little bit more cardboard cutouts. Like I think this person's going to be a little bit sanguine, and maybe, but they'll have a soft spot for kittens or whatever. But it's the moment at which they start talking to other people and start interacting, and then that's when they kind of crystallize. And suddenly I'm seeing new nuances and stuff, and I know things about them. So there's an element for me of actually, as I'm writing it, I'm learning about them. So I know that other authors have like written whole dossiers almost on their characters and their likes and dislikes and their favorite color and everything like that. That's never been the case for me. I couldn't do that. I have to begin writing them, and then suddenly I'm like, okay, I know exactly who this person is. I know how they would react in this situation and that, and I want to see what happens next.
I think that's cool. I think that's way cool. Yeah, I world build, and so I write their background and adventures before I ever write them doing an adventure. So that's when I sit down with them and I'm like, okay, so I know what motivates them. I know what their history is. I know the things that they've suffered or experienced. And so that shapes all the dialogue. And then, of course, the dialogue, gives birth to other things. So, okay, cool. I was curious about that. Is that satisfactory to you, Benjamin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of good insight.
Hit us with another one.
So I am actually going to steal one from Ben in the comments because I did not have that question, but it is one that is an interesting one. And that is, do you write with an audience in mind? Or is the satisfaction of your reader more important to you than anything else?
See, I thought that went with what's the most important part of the book?
Okay. So yeah, maybe I'll ask that one, and then we can go into
Let's do Ben's question. I was just harassing.
Okay.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Okay. Coomer, do you want to start off this one?
Audience in mind. I'd have to say no. I don't actually picture an audience in mind. The satisfaction of the reader. Oh yeah. I want the reader to walk away from a story I write. I look at it as, if you're a reader and you're going to come to one of my stories, you are willing to give me a part of your time and a part of your day to read one of my stories, then I am absolutely going to make sure, to the best of my ability, to make it worth it for you. It may in the end still not be your genre, and that's okay. It may not be your story. That's okay. You may not exactly, like it, but I want you to walk away feeling like you didn't waste your time. That's the biggest thing. I want you to walk away with that, because it's an investment of your time, and I don't want to waste your reader's time, ever. Ever, ever. So yes, that second part, absolutely. Audience, no, I don't. The only audience I really think about when I first write my book and I first take a story and I go, what is this about? What am I doing? I'm the audience. If I'm not entertained as the audience, then I'm pretty much going to be fairly sure when that reader comes in, I'm not going to give them anything good for their time they're spending reading.
Is that kind of like, if you're not crying while you're writing the scene, you're not going to make anyone cry?
Pretty much, and I have made myself sob before in certain chapters, just like a baby. I mean, just, you have no idea.
You go, oh, this is good. This is so good. Yeah. Okay, who else wants to answer? Audience.
I was going to say, I put both hats on. So my writer hat, I don't care about the audience. I'm a terrible person. I'm the audience. I want to have fun. I'm here to have a good time. When I've got the publisher hat on and I'm thinking more about marketing and I'm working with other people and they're the writers, get your audience down ahead of time so we can market this thing well. So, it's a little two-faced of me, but yeah.
What about you, Scoot?
I was going to say, I think it's really important as a writerly skill to be able to understand the unrestrained creativity of a writer and the ruthlessness of like a publisher editor. I think it's really important to grow both of those and to be able to switch between them. But Scoot, go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question because who the audience is it's good. It could change. It could the life of your story is going to be much longer. I mean, our stories will outlive us, so it's really hard to really understand who the audience is. So I really like how Coomer said it, that like he writes for himself first, and if he's not having fun, then nobody's gonna have fun reading it. I guess how I think of it is the aspect that I care about of the audience is I really like taking familiar things and doing something different with them. So that involves I need to know what the audience is expecting so that I can subvert it and then do something totally unique. I like trying to take things in a new direction. So that you have to be aware of the audience. You have to be aware of what your audience is reading as in broad strokes. But then you don't want to, because like there's this concept of like audience capture where if you write a story about elves and you get more likes than you've ever had on your story, or whatever the feedback is, then you're like, I'm going to write more stories about elves because people really like that. And then eventually you're going to be only writing elf stories, and you're not going to be writing stories that were appealing to you as a writer. So you have to have a boundary to keep your audience kind of at arm's length, so that you know what it is that they like, you listen to their feedback to the extent that it is helpful to you, but you're not pandering, I guess. So let me put it this way. When I am getting my draft finished and I am polishing it, drafting, I am writing for me. Polishing, I am paying a little bit more attention to what the reader experience is going to be like. Like Coomer was saying, you don't want to waste their time. But so like you got to put on the different hats at the different times in the process.
Anybody else? Because for me, it's been simple. I'm here because of my kids. So I've always, even now, even though most of my kids have grown up and gotten married and now have kids of their own, I still write for my kids, and now I write for my grandkids. So that's my first layer of, I make it fun for my family. And then I figured it was really funny when I started writing Chronicles of a Hero or Wanted Hero as a comic book, because that's how all this started. I just had this idea because I was already giving these stories to my kids and to kids of my friends. But I had this thought, well, what if nobody likes it? And I thought, well, you know what? If I can just sell one comic book, I'm pretty sure I could sell 1,000. Because if one person will like it, there's so many people on the planet, I just need to find the right people. I don't need to write the right story. I need to write the story that I'm supposed to write, and then I need to find the right people to read it. So that's how I've always looked at it. And since my kids were always addicted to the stories that I gave them, I started there, and they've always been my motivation to just keep going. So, and now that I have 32 grandkids as well, I kind of cheat. I have my own built-in fan base. So, but that's how I look at it.
People call it a family reunion. People call it a fan convention.
There you go. There you go.
I do have an answer to this one, but I want to hear Eric's first. Eric, if you have one.
Well, so for those who don't know, Eric, Ian and I know each other in real life. We go way back, and we're writing buddies. And I owe a lot of my creativity and my willingness to write and share my writing to Ian. So what I'm about to say is literally something he helped explain to me. But when he helped turn me around on the idea of writing for yourself, right? Because to take a contrarian view, I used to think that was a load of garbage, right? If I write for myself, my writing will sit on my computer and never be shared with anyone, and no one will ever read it because it's just for me. And there's always this tension, like, well, if I write stories, I want to be able to share them. So I'm not writing for myself. And it's dishonest of me to pretend like I am. I want an audience because that's why I'm sharing my work, right? But really, now I'm sold on writing for yourself. The reason being, when I ask, and this is what Ian helped me realize, like when you ask, who's my ideal reader? Who would really enjoy the kinds of stories I would enjoy? And the more you describe that person and their tastes and their preferences and the kinds of things that are fascinating to them and are interesting to them, the more you're just describing yourself. It just, the more you do it, it's like, oh, they like realistic combat. It's like, yeah, because I'm obsessed with that. And they like epic fantasy because I'm obsessed with that. And these are their favorite books, because those are my favorite books, and you're just describing yourself. And so, in a sense, writing for yourself, on one hand, it's like you got to do it for yourself because otherwise it's not sustainable. Audience capture thing that Scoot mentioned, and like if you're not having fun, you're not going to keep doing it. And if you're not having fun, like why are you doing it at all? Like all those things matter from a creativity perspective. But also, like you're kind of writing for yourself because the people who are most obsessed with your stories are going to look like you because no one's going to care about them more than you.
I think that's freaking brilliant. I've never had anyone explain it that way. I've always thought it was a little crap too. Now I'm converted. It's like, what the hell?
He had to put me on the spot, so I stole it.
That's awesome. I've never had it explained that way.
No, that's awesome because that wasn't even what I was going to say.
Okay, so do we get a twofer then?
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, my answer is going to be a little bit of subversion of that one, which is funny because I said it, but once upon a time I did. So I actually have 3 people in particular in my mind whom I write for every single time, like 3 living people out there. And one of them is me, so that's a cop-out. The second one is Eric, and again, like we've been working together a really long time. It's not an exaggeration for me to say that I wouldn't be a writer if it weren't for him. Like the fact that like we've always written together and stuff is something that we've honed our craft together.
It's mutual.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be a writer without him. So sorry guys, we come as a package set.
Yeah. So we're going to be referring to each other a lot here. So one is me, the other one's Eric, and the last one is my wife. And they read all my stuff. And so, if they don't like the story that I wrote, I mean, that's happened once or twice. And, it means that I got to change something. For me, that's it. What I want to emphasize, though, is going beyond that, because every time I've tried to go beyond that little circle of the 3 of us, then things have gone very badly. Every single time I've ever tried to write something for anyone beyond that, it doesn't work anymore. Because if you're writing for anyone beyond like these very real, very tiny group of people, you and maybe one other person, maybe another, I'm fortunate to have 2. Most people don't have 2, but I have these ones. If you go beyond that, then suddenly you are writing for someone who is faceless. And then every time you get uncertain about something you're writing, then you're going to see that faceless person. And that faceless person is going to be criticizing and saying, I don't like this. But the thing is that faceless person does not exist. And this is one of the reasons I hear some people say, like, well, I want to write something that everyone will like. Okay, that's not possible. Like, it's literally impossible. There is no way, there's not a single sentence in any language you can write that everybody in the world will like. It cannot be done. So instead, you write for a few people, and kind of like Eric was saying, and kind of like Jamie was saying, you go out and you're going to find people who are going to like that thing as you expand out, and those people are going to look like the people who are in your group. Yeah. So for me, that's always it. Is it's like, well, who am I trying to entertain here? Well, myself. Which everyone else has said here, and that's really important. And you'll start to understand what the things are that you like, you don't like, and stuff, and how to kind of endorse that. But then for me, it was a really pivotal step when I realized that it's like, well, I want Eric to like this. And if Eric doesn't like something about it, then oftentimes it's a good point. And it's something that if I changed it, then it would actually make this story better. And I would feel that's better too. And it's kind of the same with my wife as well when she reads these things.
Yeah, we don't like faceless people here.
Perfect timing, like always. I think that's kind of sorry, side thing. I think that's kind of cool because Ian and Eric, I met you both at different times. I had no idea that you knew each other, and I admired both of you, and I got you both here, and you know each other. I think that's kind of cool. I think it's just you're supposed to be here.
Set on that one.
That's awesome.
Surprise.
Okay, Benjamin.
All right. I'll go with the second one on my list now. And that is, what moment or motivation pushed you to finally start writing or hit publish for the first time? And I think I'm going to have Delana answer this one first.
Oh dear. It published for the first time. I think I was just tired of having all these stories. I guess I should put it this way. I had a big writers group that I was a part of, and I saw a lot of people writing and never hitting publish, and getting older and dying and never hitting publish. And I have a friend who took a piano, and old piano that was dead, turned it on its side, turned it into a bookcase, and it's got a sign at the top: don't die with your music still in you. And inside is bookshelves, and it's all of his friends' books that were published. So for me, I think I realized I wanted to actually publish and let people read these things instead of just doing them, and sticking them in a drawer. I wanted to let people do it. A few other bits of it, but yeah, I just wanted to get them out. I didn't want to die with my story still in.
Ben, call the next person. Who do you want?
Okay, Scoot, what about you?
Oh man. So the question is, what prompted me to, finally hit publish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or write. It says write or publish or hit publish.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've been writing my whole life, so really publish is the is the key distinction here. Because I was writing, and I had a laptop full of stories, and changed laptops. It phased out. I lost all that stuff, and I was thinking about it, and I realized that there's not I was making it a bigger deal in my head than it was in real life. So I was trying, I thought that the way you start writing is by starting to write a novel. So I started writing, and I was like, man, this is really hard, and it's not really working the way that I wanted it to work. So then I initially started publishing that's a first attempt at a story to another publication. Then I was like, I need a dedicated space for this so that I can focus. So I created Gibberish, started publishing it there, and then I was like, all right, well, I need writing practice. And we talked last time about how I did the writing exercises for 2 years, kind of just getting a feel for it. And I realized how much I didn't know. So really what got me publishing was the desire to get better at writing. Because in a vacuum, if I'm writing by myself and I'm reading by myself, it's a feedback loop. There's not going to be I'm not going to grow. I'm just going to keep writing the same thing that I've always written. So I needed some way to get some live feedback from actual people, and to just see I look at it differently when it's in front of people. So I needed a way to get out of my head and look at it with fresh eyes, and figure out how to do it right. And like I said, I mean, the very first writing exercise I published at Gibberish, I hated. I was trying to do too much with it. It was long, and it was just messy. It was convoluted. So then I tightened it up to 250 word writing exercises. And I was like, all right, I started getting much more out of it. It helped me. I believe sincerely that it has helped me to write tighter prose when I do write my longer stories. So I guess that's the long and short of it, is that I wanted to get better, and I wasn't getting better, sitting in my cave, scratching a story onto the wall. I needed to get it out there.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I haven't actually thought of before, so that's great.
That almost leads into the one pending question from Ben about how we feel about word counts. You saw that was a while back. He wanted to know Substack has helped us to be free of word counts, or if we still focus on word counts.
Who was I talking to about that? It was like editing down. Who was I talking to?
You were in my AMA with Julie.
That's right. Just saying need to edit down so it's the right word count. What the hell is the right word count? How does that?
Yeah.
If you've read it's like at one point I read somewhere that a chapter is supposed to be so long, and apparently that ticked off. Who wrote? Oh gosh, I keep saying The Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe.
Herman
No,
Melville.
that's not it.
You're thinking of Moby Dick.
No.
Melville?
No. I'm thinking of Terry. The two people that I really admire was Terry Pratchett and oh gosh. All I can think is the smiley face in space, and the guy from England.
Douglas Adams.
Yes, Douglas Adams. He's got one of his chapters. His chapter's literally 3 paragraphs. And I read a story that that his editor's like, you can't do that. It's like, tough crap. That's the way it is. And Terry Pratchett used to do that all the time. So, my comment about that was, a proper word count. The proper word count is to make sure that you have a complete story, whatever that is. So, I don't know. That's my opinion. But
she's been hanging out with traditional agents. And they were trying to limit, and I said, well, your publisher is not a traditional publisher, and your publisher likes big books, so leave it alone.
I'm missing. All I saw was a blue square.
Oh, he had a standing ovation.
Oh.
That was his camera working for a second. He's actually like 100 people.
Okay, so who else about Coomer? I'm curious. What got you to finally publish? Would it happen to be a nagging friend of yours that was like, I want to read your story? Did that help?
Well, that is a warning to everyone, to the rest of you who have not published anything. This man knows. When he knows, he will be on you like white on rice. I mean, seriously, he will.
And so many people are glad that I did too.
It was little secret. This was not my first one I published.
Oh.
Aha. My very first one, because I've been writing for just a long time, long time. My very first one, it just sort of was hard to explain. Sort of a burning need to get it out there and get people to see it and share it and get feedback. A little bit of what Scoot said, but just a sort of this burning need to do it that I really wanted to put out there, good or bad, and just do my best and let it stand the test of, okay, this is where I was. I'm a writer at this point. Here we go. This is what it is. Here's why I am right here in history. And then I'll go to the next one, do it again. And I'll know I'll get better because I won't stop writing. So you'll get better as you write more. That's just the nature of it. Yeah. But a little bit of it also, I can actually point to something my wife has said more than once. Says it all the time. It's a great phrase. Says, we are made of stories. We are all made of stories. And we all have stories to tell. And we are a storytelling people. And that is the beginning and end of it all.
I agree completely. Okay, Ian, I'm curious about you. What got you to start writing? I know you and Eric are going back and forth, but first of all, was one of you the first to come up, between you two, and the other one said, hey, that's cool, I'll try it too, or how did that happen?
So I think, excuse me. Let's see. We were in college, and I think I originally said to Eric, like, oh, hey, there's this, story that I'm working on right now. I was studying engineering at the time, and he was studying history. And I think he said a jab about engineers and writing. And I took that personally, so I kept writing. we yeah we continued back and forth for a really long time. There was a really long period where the stories were just kind of incubating, and we were only writing little scribbles and kind of poking at things and stuff. But a lot of it was like world building and that kind of thing. I actually was writing a completely different series in a completely different world that was kind of science fiction, and then I switched over and kind of developed this early modern fantasy world that most of my stuff takes place in now. I think the question had something about word counts in there, and I felt like my answer to that might be more interesting because since coming particularly to Substack, then yeah, there we go, engineer writer, nice, it's problem solving, No, since coming to Substack, then I have kind of fallen into a groove of a certain word count. And I do have a sense of, okay, I want my stories to be within this certain range. I don't want them to exceed it. And that, at least for me, has been really, really good. That's gotten me to exercise things like understanding narrative distance better, or understanding how to, be cursory with my descriptions, or, really knowing like, okay, if you only have this very limited real estate, then what really matters in your story and what doesn't. And so for me, it's been highly beneficial. And I can tell that I've gotten better just by that kind of working under that yoke, which is, so there's a little bit of a, love-hate relationship there, where sometimes, I'm like, this is awesome, but, it's absolutely blowing up my word count. But at the same time, it really does get you to put on that editor hat that some others talked about here and really scrutinize your work, figure out what you need and don't need.
But have you ever looked at your work when you're editing or anyone here looked at something that you had trimmed it down and then realize, oh no, I need to go back to, there needs more explanation. It needs to be expanded upon.
Thing where I'm going to do an edit for trim, trim the fat. And then I, cut 500 words and, sprinkling a little bit more things here and there to make sure things are clear or to hit the more important parts, and then at the end it's the same length.
So I'm curious.
Do that a lot.
I'm curious, how many of you, when do you feel that, okay, it's ready to hit publish? I'll modify the question a bit. When do you feel a project, because it doesn't matter if you've published it or if you're doing it on Substack, when do you come to a point where you just say, okay, this needs to go out to people to read? Do you have a point? Do you have a way that you decide that?
I'll jump in real quick. For me, it's hashtag bless this mess, push it. Get it. I am definitely. I think there's a little voice in my head that's a perfectionist that really struggles with finding what that point is. So my tendency is to push it before I feel truly comfortable, because if I don't, I'm like, there was a story that if I schedule something in advance, I'll worry at it and I'll do these little picky things and move words around. It'll just never be done. I got to just like, all right, this is final, and then I'll worry about doing something different with it later. Mm-hmm. The Find the Black Page serial, a whole lot of bless this mess going on when I was publishing that, and I was telling myself like, all right, like I'm going to tighten this up when I novelize it or do something like that with it. So knowing that serialization, for me, knowing that serialization is not the end of a story, but really kind of the beginning, has been helpful to like get rid of that perfectionistic tendency and just kind of get it out there.
I think that's awesome.
Lines help because I'm the same way. Scoot, I'll tinker with it. I'll worry about it. I'll keep thinking about it until it sticks. And yeah, no bueno. Got to just get it out there.
Not really serious, but I will say my joking answer to that when I'm talking to my writers is, do you hate it yet? And if you hate it, you're done. You're done. Publish it. You're done.
I don't know. back when I was working with David Farland for a while, and he was helping me, encouraging me to take my first book forward. And because I had gone from making comic books, and then I got in a car accident, and my hands were mangled. I couldn't draw for about 4 years, and I thought everything was over, everything that I had done. And my daughter and my wife encouraged me and said, well, why don't you take the comic book and write novels? And I'm like, I'm not a writer. And they're like, yes, you are. I'm like, no, I just wrote scripts for a comic book. It's not the same thing. It's not a novel. So I tried doing that, and I realized as I went through that process, everyone and their dog had criticisms for every aspect of the book that you can imagine. And I realized at one point that it's never going to get published. So I finally had to come to a stern talking to myself in front of a mirror and say, okay, so what's the most important thing that I need to be convinced of? And I realize I'm not trying to be the best storyteller in the world. I agree that the more we write, Coomer, the more we write, the better we'll get at it. I understand that. And that's like with anything, hopefully. But I had to look myself in the mirror and say, you don't suck. And I realized that's actually the most important thing that I've learned through this whole thing. You don't have to be the best. You literally just have to not suck. Because if you suck, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your marketing is or your cover or anything else. People are going to find out that you suck, and they're going to tell people, and you're going to burn. You will go down. But if you don't suck, it'll just improve. And so I just went with it. I was like, I know that sounds like a really, really low bar to start with, but when you feel like you're being berated and, nobody believes in you except for, home base, which is substantial. I'm not undermining the blessings that I have, but going and trying to meet the world and everyone and their dog saying, you can't do this. I'm one of those kids of, I double dog dare you. Really? Okay. So I go and prove them wrong. And I just realized for myself, my own mental and emotional sanity is, as long as I realized I don't suck. What was it? I had someone who edited. He was a principal of a private school, and his boys had read my book series, and he kept hearing about him from his sons. And he came and approached me one day, and he said, my side hobby is editing. I'm like, you like to edit for fun? He goes, yeah, I know it's a nerd thing, but I really do. And he says, I noticed that you had some errors in the books that, my son showed me. And I went, yeah. And he says, would you mind? Could I, do you have an editor? And I said, I've spent a lot of money on editors and things are still screwed up. And I said, I've kind of lost confidence in that. He says, well, I really love doing it, and I would do it for free just for fun. So I had 3 old copies of 3 of my novels. Each book is like 3 inches thick. So I brought them over, and a couple months go by, and he brings them back to me. And in one of the books, and I'd already published a second version with edits in it, but he says, there were just so many errors in there. And I said, oh, okay. He says, you're not concerned? I said, well, let me ask a couple questions. With the errors, when you were reading it, I said, did the errors pull you out of the story? And he goes, well, no, but I was looking for them. I says, no, that's okay. I said, and did you like the story? He said, yeah, I absolutely loved it. I said, yeah, then I don't care. And that might be harsh and horrible, but I over the years, I've developed this little system that if someone tells me that they found an error and it bugged them, I write it down because that is important to me. But do I change it? No, I don't take the time to go back and do it because, opinions are like, butts. Everyone's got one. So, however, if 20 or 30 or 50 people bring up the same thing, I will go fix that. Because then I'm saying, oh, that is substantial. Okay. I've only had that happen to me once. Only once. And so the rest of it, I know. But I actually have a bookshelf out of my house where I have traditionally published books from the big publishing houses that when I find an error, spelling error, grammatical, whatever, I circle it in red and I put it on my aha shelf. And I'm saying, see, you're like everybody else. So Anyway, that's my roundabout
You should
story.
you should put that on a T-shirt. You suck less than you think you do.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Yeah, yeah. I started writing because of my kids, because I didn't like the stories that were out there, and I wanted to do something better because I just started being a dad, and I wanted better for my kids. And so if I couldn't find it, then I needed to make it. So that's what got me writing. Who did we miss? Anybody? We good? Benjamin, next story or next question.
Next question. Okay.
Next question.
Okay, question number 3 on my list. For those who have it, I don't know who Jamie sent it to.
Just me and Lisa.
Okay. Question number 3. What early obstacle, if any, nearly stopped your writing, and how did you push through it? And I'll address this one at Ian if he's got an answer for it.
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry, I got something in my throat. Man, I sometimes tell people that some of the hardest things about writing, especially as you go into adulthood and you have conflicting priorities, is everything but writing, and that's because you're going to be assailed with so many priorities that are going to be competing, and by all rights, they're going to be more important than writing, and they're often going to be more urgent than writing. And the trick is that you need to still write. So some of it is finding ways to construct your life or your lifestyle in a way that you can continue to write in spite of the fact that things go wrong, because there will always be a valid reason not to write. There will always be a reason why you shouldn't be writing right now. You should be doing laundry, or you should be, running that errand, or doing that thing that it's been 6 months and you've said a million times that you were going to do. There will always be those things, but you got to find a way to do it. And so, like, right at 4 a.m. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's for some people it's like, well, you wake up early and you do it. But again, like, one of the things I would recommend if you're talking about that is don't think that you'll just be able to grit your teeth and write, because oftentimes that's not going to be sustainable. That's not going to work suddenly as the first time that you get sick, or the first time that you get a little bit tired or a little bit stressed from work life or whatever it might be. So if you're going to, for example, that's a great case. If you're going to wake up at 4 a.m. and you're going to write, then make sure that you're figuring out your schedule for going to sleep properly, and make sure you're figuring out what exactly you're going to drink first thing in the morning. You're going to, make yourself your cup of tea, and it's going to be your favorite cup. You have your ritual, and then you're going to sit down and you're going to start writing. So I guess for me, that's it. And a lot of that, it falls into the category of what, we millennials call adulting. It's a whole bunch of that, and figuring out, it's kind of the question of life is, it's like, well, how do you fit all these other things? So in order to write very effectively and have the right time dedicated and kind of set aside and know this is sacred, nobody's going to mess with this. For me, a lot of the secret was figuring out the rest of your life. And what do you do with all these other things that are immediately going to come knocking at the door as soon as you are looking at the blank page?
Who do you want to go next?
Well, yeah, Eric, what about you?
The obstacles we had to overcome, right? That's the question.
Yeah.
I think there are some things that I think every writer has to deal with that I dealt with. Like, I had to, well, maybe not every writer. I had to get out of the idea that it was going to be terrible and pointless, so I shouldn't bother. I had to get out of the mindset that we have plenty of time to do it later in life. I second what Lisa was saying earlier about the thoughts of death are actually a good motivator to get done what you want to get done. It's dark, but it's real, and that was that was part of what prompted me to try to just move more quickly and write more and get more out there. But the other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of an early obstacle is feedback, and how getting the wrong feedback or getting feedback from the wrong person at the wrong time can completely derail you. And I wrote a short story and I shared it with like 3 or 4 friends, including Ian. And two people kind of gave me feedback on it that, like what Jamie was saying, right? Everyone's got an opinion, right? Everyone's got criticism, and they're not all saying the same things, and they're getting pulled in a million different directions. And like there were 2 of them who gave me feedback where they didn't like that it was fantasy. They didn't like the setting. One guy thought there was too much description. One guy thought there wasn't enough. And it's like, oh yeah, Lisa's shaking her head. You know the deal. It's just all that garbage. But basically, 2 of them in particular, and these are both men I respected, whose like opinions I expected. They have good thoughts on literature. They have taste. I wanted to know what they thought, but they both basically came back and was like, yeah, you should have just written a different story, and like they didn't use those words like to try to fill out their feedback. It's like you should have just done it completely differently for different reasons about a different thing, right? And again, they didn't say that, but that's like I would have had to just make a different story. And so that turned me off of sharing my writing for a long time without quite realizing it, because I thought like, I'm not good enough yet. I'm not ready for prime time. I'm not going to show this to anybody. And that story, mostly unedited from that state, became episode 1 of the Samizdat, which eventually launched kind of my serial and is my longest form, and I'd say my most successful project. And so I had to get past that. And it's a certain amount of like knowing what kind of feedback you want from the right people at the right time, but also knowing when you just shouldn't listen to them because they're not your audience or they don't have the insight you need. And so forget them. That was something I had to push through.
All right. Jamie, your turn.
So I have 2 things to say on that. First of all, definitely what Eric was saying about, feedback. Lisa was here with for the very first time, I listened to a troll. I listened to the negative. And, wow, how one single person that I didn't know affected me that hard. In 72 hours, I unpublished all the work, everything that I had done since 2004. This was 2023. Everything. I had nothing left in 72 hours. And I literally looked at what I had done and just, it sent me into a spiral for a whole year of depression that I had to fight hard, because I was like, what the hell did I just do? And who is this person? I look at it now and say, I think it had to happen because I am in an infinitely better place now, and doing the best work that I've ever done, having more fun than I've ever done. It's one of the reasons why I found Substack, which I'm so grateful for. And yeah, you have to be careful. Don't don't try to use a permanent solution to a temporary problem. That's the best advice I can give on that one. But the other thing that I find funny is one of the best reviews that I ever got. And I sold my very first book, Prelude to a Hero, the first version. It's not available anymore because I trashed everything. But back with Prelude to a Hero, I wrote that while we were homeless. I was homeless with a wife, 8 children, and a father-in-law to take care of. And that's intense. That's when you know, Ian, that you to be able to create an environment like now. I have the perfect I have an imperfect office, but I've gotten it down to a system that I know that, like you said, you make your favorite drink, you go in, you get situated in a certain way. I have a certain hour. I get up at 4 a.m. I do. I make myself a hot drink. I come in here. I know exactly what sounds to put on, and I have an extraordinary variety of incense that I burn that will immediately put me into whatever mood that I want. And then for complete and total focus, I use Spotify, but it's funny because I use podcasts and I listen to rain, just storms and rain. And I can write for 8, 10, 12 hours. And it just puts me in that mood right away. But the funniest and I think best review I ever got, I think the first few years of Prelude to Hero on Amazon, I think I sold just under 23,000 copies. And I just remembered this one. I thought this was the best review that I took the most pride in. It was a 3-star. And it's because of what this guy said. He said 3, and I got it right here. It says 3 stars. It says, great story, ! He says, would have given it 5 stars, but I hate this genre. And I thought, what the heck? Anyway, but I found out later someone had recommended the book to him, and he's like, no. And his friend's like, just try it. You'll enjoy it. And he read it, and he goes, that's really good. I really enjoyed it. He says, but I hate this genre, so I can't give you 2 more stars. And I was like, I'm so going to keep this. That's the best 3 stars I've ever had in my life. So just saying, there's all this whole wave, and different degrees of people out there. I like honest people, but you gotta let that stuff go. You really do. I don't join writers groups. I just don't. I don't let my wife edit my books. Because unlike Ian, no, my wife loves me. I kiss the water she walks on. She hates that I say that, but she's not in here. So, but she's a school teacher, and my daughters I have 9 daughters. They're all brutal, but they don't have anything on their mom. It's just, wow, I can't. I just finally had to say, sweetheart, you're not my reader. And you'll hear all my kids in the other room just going, we are. Okay, kids, I'm so grateful. So, yeah, it's life. It really is. It's life. And you're not, we already discussed it at the first part of this conversation. You can't write something that everyone's going to like. And that's okay. That's totally fine. But you need to find the people that you do want to write for, yourself and your little circle. And then, go with that inspiration. It's motivated me. Here we go. My daughter's going to write something now. She's going to say something. She has something to say. I know she does. Jessie's always encouraged me. So all my kids have. And my wife has. I shouldn't have said that. She doesn't knock it. It's just she can't edit my books. The one time I did let her, I says, I'll hire you as my editor, because I was so frustrated at paying other people to do it. And she edited it to the point I says, I have to fire you. She says, why? I said, because I don't disagree what you're asking me to do, but by the time I'm done editing the way that you have told me that I need to edit, they don't sound like my characters anymore. Can't do it. So, yeah. I should stop now, because I'm sure my wife or my kids are going to tell my wife what I just said. So, somebody else.
Let's go with Scoot.
We're talking about obstacles that we had to overcome on the writing journey.
Yep.
I would say similar to Eric about the feedback issue. So the first, not really the first, but the first kind of headline serial after notes started on Substack, and I was starting to get some traction, starting to get people reading my stuff. It was a tech noir serial called Duel, with a detective and a sidekick robot. A lot of fun. I have a lot of affection for that story, but I started publishing it in a very difficult time in my life, and at the very I was just kind of learning about how to outline, how to prepare, how to like get a story going. And because I was just figuring this out, there's a big glaring plot hole. I boxed myself into a corner and I didn't know how to get myself out of it. And there was no way for me to fix it because I was already publishing. There's no way for me to fix it without it being like a big Deus ex machina. And readers noticed, and they were right to notice. But at the very end of the serial, wrapping up the mystery and all this stuff, someone left a nice, correct, factually accurate comment pointing out some of the disappointing aspects of the serial, and I was crushed. And I didn't publish another serial until Find the Black Page, and that almost 2 years later. I had a really hard time. I was really down on myself. It was really difficult, and I had to do when I started writing Find the Black Page and I started getting into it, I was like, wait a second, this is not as painful as it was as Duel was, because I'm not in that difficult place in my life anymore, and I have learned a lot about how to write. I started looking at Duel and I was like, wait a second, this is actually good. I don't suck, It's there's something to this. So I think you gotta, for me, I guess what this obstacle represents is that I am not an objective observer of my own writing. And whatever it is that I'm feeling about my writing is specific to a time, not an objective truth about how my writing is. If I'm feeling bad about my writing, that means that I probably need to take a walk and drink some water. It doesn't mean that I'm actually bad at writing. And the only way that I got out of that was by continuing to publish stuff. I published a lot between finishing Duel and starting Find the Black Page, but I was really I had a really hard time with it. I had writer's block. I had all kinds of things that were preventing me from doing more ambitious projects. And now that I'm getting into the rhythm of it, I'm able to get some of those things out. But I really needed to confront that aspect of the creative process, and in order to confront it, I needed to dive into a thing that scared me, which was publishing a serial.
All right, let's go with Coomer. What do you have to say?
What did I have to overcome? Oh, wasn't a 1-2 punch. It was a 3-punch, actually. I had a lot of trauma going into in the past. On top of just personal trauma in the past, I wound up as, hey, engineer solidarity here. I wound up in a extremely toxic workplace. Engineers will find them. We're good. We're good at that. We run nose first, square into them. I did. Just there are no words. Just when you're in it and you face it, you have no words to describe it other than, oh boy. That was number 2, and it saps your confidence. It just drains it out of you like you wouldn't believe. But I tried anyway. Desperately, just bloody fingers clawing at it, just going, I can't give this up. And then came punch number 3, where I also stumbled across a troll who was also an editor.
Oh.
Hate those.
Oh.
That one, he went scorcher of policy on me. I mean, hard. And hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he nuked me from orbit, and between just my trauma from my past into the toxic workplace that I was in for years, that was just one bridge too many, and I stopped, and I had to claw past that and get some help from the outside. I mean, 'cause sometimes you have to look outside yourself and go and reach out and go, help. And you get there, but that took me a while to claw out of that and find my own pace again. And funny thing is, the story he annihilated from orbit. I did some rewrites, changed the main character, did some changes of, okay, let's swap the gender of the main character. Let's make it first person. And hey, it's called Dark Device, The Great Chasm.
Ha! 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 Sucks to be him. Okay. Ha!
That's awesome.
That's a happy ending.
Okay, well, I think I've asked everybody except Delana, so it's your turn.
I'm old. And my problems started when I was very young. My parents wanted an engineer, and there was going to be none of this writing. That was not going to happen. None of this writing. So even when I was really young, they would do things like not give me paper. And I mean, it was very clear, you will not be a writer. That is not allowed. So way back then, this is before computers, girls in grammar school were making necklaces out of gum wrappers. And so I couldn't have paper, but I could have gum wrappers. And you can write on gum wrappers if you write really small. So that was the first act of defiance. And I had I was wearing my novel. Then they gave me one of the first computers. They didn't have, anyway, yeah, I won't even go into how old those are. But so that I could learn to program, so I could be an engineer, right? It did not occur to them that you could write novels on those. Although it was kind of hard to get the whole novel on the little floppy. It was multiple floppies, but anyway. So that, and then I went to college and was not allowed to go to the liberal arts college that I wanted to go to. I was in an engineering college. And towards the end of my degree, I had already acquired the engineering minor. One of my teachers said, "Is there anything that you are good at? Because it's not this engineering." And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm actually a really good writer." And they said, "Well, if you want to keep your scholarship, you should change over to writing." Because I had great, I was able to do writing as, writing for engineers, right? You put me in that class, I'm going to do great, right? That's it. You can't get away from it, right? So I changed my major. I was still living at home at the time. I called my mom at a payphone to tell her that I had changed my major. And then I moved out because I had to leave home. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started in it.
Wow.
That's incredible.
No, just stubborn.
Tomato. I did actually want to say one more thing that a lot of other folks on here touched on, which is kind of, that question of how to find not just the right feedback, but the right people to give feedback. And I think everyone on here has had an experience with that, where that was going to be probably next on my list, was receiving feedback from certain people. And for me, it was other members, like the siblings, for example, who I would give something to, and I would get a really lackluster response. From something that I had written that I can look back on and say, well, actually, this was okay. There's this quality of your writing that we like to call vision, and your vision is it's the idea of your story or your writing in its best sense. And it's really important to know what the vision is, and you can spend a little time kind of gleaning it. You don't need to know exactly what it is, but as long as you have a sense of it. And this is really important. Don't listen to anyone who doesn't understand your vision, or who, more importantly, doesn't agree with your vision. Because if you take advice from someone who doesn't agree with your vision, those people are going to be actively trying to make your story something that you don't want it to be. So it's a really important thing to be able to recognize. So no matter how much you like a person, or no matter how much they care about you, or they say, well, I really want to do this, or they're an editor, and Coomer's case, or, well, I really want to help you, or whatever the matter. Like Eric said, he ended up giving his draft of a fantasy story to people who did not like fantasy. And so they kind of spat it back at him, and they said, well, just get rid of all that fantasy crap and then it'll be better. But he wanted very fantasy, or like, Jamie, it was the same thing. Was, you got that feedback from someone who, like, objectively, it was like, this was great, except for this one thing that it is, that, like, they always wanted it to be. So, just knowing that vision, recognizing that vision, and being able to hold on to it, and being able to also say, like, okay, you like oranges but not grapes. Well, what I'm writing are grapes. Okay, so, like, move on to the next stall. It's kind of like that faceless audience thing. Like, I don't need to please you. Don't waste your time with them. There are people who like grapes. Find those people, and you can care about their opinions.
By the way, that 3 stars is worth 10 to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's like the best, best accolade you could ever get. Is like, like, despite the fact that I hate this thing that your story is, I like it. It's like, all right, I'll take it. I don't care how many stars you get.
That was awesome. Gosh, I only planned us doing this for an hour. I know that there's a lot of us, but we've gone 90 minutes. How many more questions have we got?
Think 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 questions.
Well, let's see. You guys, I know, Coomer, you said you had to take off, but I'm glad you're still here.
I thought I'd hang around a little while.
Shoot. Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead and shoot.
All right. Let's go with, in your opinion, because I know this is going to be opinion-based, what element of a book matters? For example, it could be moral, genre, literary style, the cover, etc. And I think I'll direct this one at Jamie first.
What's the most important part of a book? Is that what the question is?
Yes. Or what element of the book matters most?
What element? Oh, what matters most and why? Oh, gosh. For me, it's what I said in the beginning. It's what is that story going to imprint? Maybe I should phrase it this way. To me, the most important part of a story is what is it going to imprint upon the reader? What is going to be the lasting effect on the reader? I prefer to write stories that because I hate encroaching on other people. I don't want to tell somebody how to be something or to do something. And I don't want to be preaching to somebody. I've written parenting books, but I try to stress that I'm not trying to tell somebody how to parent a certain way. I try to give suggestions. What I feel is the most important thing in a book is providing a natural, non-encroaching way of someone enjoying themselves and discovering something new. For me and my stories, I like people discovering things about themselves. That's why I try really hard to figure out how to write things that resonate with readers, because I want them. You guys have heard this over and over. I got that t-shirt up above my head, but you are more than you think you are. That is a mantra that I have all the time, every day. Because I believe in people. I believe that everyone has intrinsic value. And so any story that I write, I want to have a chance to prick that aspect of their mind that they might notice that, hey, there's something special, that there's hope, that there's opportunities. And so, yeah, for me, the most important thing on a book is what it imprints on the reader. So.
Right. Coomer, what's your opinion there?
Ooh, most important part. I could probably say a lot of things like, what's your concept and what's your vision and all this kind of stuff. And it's still true. Don't get me wrong. All that's true. What are you? Do you have a good story? Are you exciting story? The characters, what are you trying to tell? For me, it's the voice. I feel like every story has its own voice. I get that from a quote by Louis L'Amour. He used to write his books, and people would ask him something similar, and he'd say, "I'm not a writer at all. I'm an oral troubadour. I'm trying to tell you a story that you'd hear around a campfire." I read that and I was like, that right there. That echoed with me so hard. So every story has a voice and it's telling something, and the reader will take something away from it. And it may not be something I'm planning, it may be something I am planning. So if I can get the story and find its voice, find what it's saying and just really care for it, really help it grow. And usually the voice kind of matches up with what's the vision for the story, usually. But it's usually I'm trying to find the story's voice. Like an example, I finished the serial recently, and I'm working on getting it to print, of Death Whispers of the Etherwave. That's my historical urban fantasy set in 1722 in the Caribbean. In that one, I have one of my little circle that reads what I write, and she came back, and in among if I didn't have an installment ready, I would be, "Oh, why aren't you done?" When it was all said and done, the first words she came back with me, just she loved all the pieces, the individual pieces, but she said, "I don't know how you did it, but you took the concept and you married up and did the most amazing concept for me of a hero, a fairly action-oriented hero who also had a chronic illness." And that wasn't exactly the vision I had, but it was the story's voice. That's the best way I can answer that, really.
All right, that's interesting. Let's hop over and have Delana answer next.
When I have my publisher's hat on, I'm going to tell you that it's the cover and the blurb and nothing else matters, because that's all that's going to sell the book. But I think Coomer was looking at my notes, because after that, when I put my writer hat on, I think it's the author's voice. The author's voice, and being true to the story you want to tell, and getting that uniqueness that is you onto the page. That's what I look for.
All right, Scoot, what's your opinion?
I don't know what everyone else is going to tell you. I'm going to tell you it's the spelling.
Oh, brutal. Brutal. So brutal.
Gotta get those words right.
Best answer
We're done
ever.
here. Back it up. We solved writing.
Brutal. So brutal.
No, okay. I'll give you a serious answer. I think for me, to differentiate from what everyone else is saying, I think for me it's I like stories that feel real. I don't play a lot with a perfect good or a perfect evil, and I don't like to say morally gray either, because it's like we're just all fallen creatures and we're all kind of like here's how I like to describe it. Let me put it this way. Bear with me for a second because this might be a walk. You ever? I don't know, I'm a religious person. There's such a thing as like religious conferences and things, or retreats, is what they'll say. And they'll go to a retreat, and people will give beautiful talks about the spiritual life and all of this stuff, and it's all very good and sweet sounding, and it's very inspiring for the spiritual life. And then you walk out of the church and you stub your toe. It's raining. You drop your keys down the drain, and it's like, all right, well, like none of you're gonna forget everything that you were just listening to. Your life is real and gritty, and like you're gonna stub your toe a lot. So I like the tension between like how life should be and how life is a space that I like to operate in. And so for me, what's important for me is that I am telling a story that resonates with people in a real way. These people feel real because they are experiencing reality in a way that kind of rhymes with how our reality is. And that's just a personal flavor. And I think I'm just describing what my voice is, or what I want my voice to be, which is what we've been talking about here. We want to have our personal kind of flavor for things, but yeah, that's important to me, that just everything feels real.
I like that.
Let's go, Eric. How about you?
In general, and then it's like if the characters aren't interesting, I just bounce out of the story. Like I read one reason I don't love sci-fi is because a lot of sci-fi doesn't really care that much about characters. Maybe that's not fair of me to say, but I've read a lot of sci-fi where I just don't care about a single name on the page at all. And it's like, that's a cool concept, but I knew it was cool when I read the Wikipedia article. I don't need to read this book. That's how I felt about some sci-fi. But then Jamie talked about the impact it has on the reader, and ultimately like the meaning that the reader takes away from it. And like, well, that's actually the most important thing. And then now I'm sold on voice actually is the most important thing. So I don't really know which of those wins between it all, because I think you can make a really convincing argument, and I would agree with you on any one of those things being the most important. But on what Scoot just said a minute ago about kind of playing with that tension between how life is and how life should be, I will say one rule that I have for myself, and this is really one of my only like narrative rules, I think, is that there's always got to be some semblance of hope in the story. Which is weird because when I write, a lot of people say like I'm writing dark fantasy, and I don't chase that label, but some people have given me that label, and I can't really tell them they're wrong. But one thing I did in a recent story, I wrote a dark story, and it was a bleak story, and it was about basically a man who learns how to kill people, right? Morally speaking, he learns how to, like, he goes through a process of dehumanization, and he becomes callous, and we see the results of that. And the story is meant to condemn him, but also at every moment in the story, whenever there's something bad about to happen, there is a moment where the world kind of stops, and there's quiet, and there's sun coming through the trees, and there's a tiny moment of beauty. And then people can choose to do right or wrong. And in that particular story, they choose wrong. And you see what happens as a result of that choice. But it's free, and hope is always there and always available. And so, sorry, this is bleak, but like, I kind of have a rule for myself, at least, that there always has to be the potential for better, like for goodness. There always has to be hope there. There always has to be beauty there, even if the story itself is tragic. So that said, I still think voice is really, really gosh darn it's and it has to come through, right? Without voice, I don't know if you have anything, but that's one rule that I've got for myself that I treat as a principle.
I like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. I think we're last up is Ian.
Yeah. Let me think about this. I should say probably that after I answer this, I should probably bounce my bedtime here. But yeah, so I was thinking about this one. One of the things I think of, especially when we talk about these different elements of storytelling or story in general, how you have the characters and the plot, and then the themes or the voice or any of these other things. We can have a tendency to think of these things independently or too independently of one another. At the end of the day, it's all one cohesive story, and to change one element is going to have an impact on all the others. I like to that, like you can remove branches from a tree, but things like plot and stuff, they're not branches. It's more like the color of the tree. You can't remove the color of a tree without removing some of the tree. You know what I mean? Or like altering it that way. So they're all kind of bound up. They're all they have this. They're woven together. That said, while I acknowledge that I think that any of those elements can be compensated for by other ones if one of them is weak. One of the things I would say is that the only one that I see that I don't think you can get away with having be weak is character. I don't know if you can get away from that if your characters are not fleshed out, or if they're not even the term likable gets very murky very quickly. If they're not very fleshed out, if they're not very developed, then the story is going to suffer because the characters are the vehicle for your readers to enter into the story. That said, when I go into stories, one of the things actually that I spend a ton of time thinking about is theme. And to me, that kind of becomes a lodestone. And there are lots of writing advice outlets and stuff that will tell you that that's a bad idea because it will immediately become preachy. So for me, it's about taking the theme and kind of showing both sides of it always, and showing the entire thing fleshed out, so that if it's too one-sided, then it kind of becomes propagandistic. So instead, you have something that shows the totality of it. I think, kind of to Eric's point, there are a lot of stories that there are stories that are dark, and then there are other stories that are just sort of I guess nihilistic. And nihilistic stories are usually ones that are only showing one side. But then if you can have a dark story that ends the same way as a really bleak one, but if it's showing the whole of the thing, then you can see those, like Eric said, like those elements of hope. And then you kind of know that this isn't the end of the story, or just because this story ended in this, really, abominable way, doesn't mean that you're necessarily saying that, and therefore, the whole world sucks, and, it might as well just burn, or we might as well have, never been born. And I think that's kind of the distinction between those two things. At least when I'm writing, I try and keep that in mind. So even when I'm writing stories that do end in very dark ways, it's still kind of exposing both sides in that way. It's still being fair to, the whole spectrum of what that experience is. I know I'm speaking very abstractly. It's hard to talk about it without talking about specifics, but maybe if other people on the panel understand what I'm saying, maybe you can chime in. Or maybe it's just me. I don't know.
I just think you did great.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Yeah,
nothing to add for
said
that. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah, you said it.
Well, I think we will call it, because we've gone almost 2 hours, and I'm really grateful that you guys all showed up and decided to do this. Thank you. I hope you had a good time. Thank you, Benjamin, for bringing questions. Keep those, because we're creating a pool of questions, unanswered questions that we can go over at a future date. But usually at this point, we try to decide what we want to talk about next time, which is in 2 weeks. So anyone have any ideas of what you'd like to discuss? Can I convince all of you to come back?
Will there be snacks?
Virtual ones,
question.
as many as you want.
Excellent question.
Excellent.
Okay, well then what we'll do is I'm going to give all of you the invitations. Anne will be back. We want to say happy birthday to her husband, Mike. That's why she's not here. And so she's out having a really nice bourbon. No, I'm not bringing bourbon. But I'll think of something. I'll think of something fun that we can talk about. I'm wondering, I'd like to talk about tools, actually, next time. Your preferred ways that you do your craft. Because I think that might be helpful to a lot of writers, especially those who are just starting out. Because I have some serious favorites, and I've tried a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, we'll talk about. So we'll do tools next time. So thank you all for showing up, and for those of you who are watching, thanks for watching the Fiction Cartel. And this will be. I'll edit this, and I will get this up first thing tomorrow, so it'll be available. And thank you, Benjamin, for your questions. Do you feel satisfied?
I do. I was actually going to say, if you guys want me to come back, I can come back and be on the panel just as a newbie.
When's your magnum opus posting to Substack? There's the question.
There you go.
Please.
First thing tomorrow, right?
No pressure. No pressure.
I realized with a lot of these questions that I've been asking, it's mainly me trying to get the motivation to actually write, and a lot of your comments on life getting in the way and everything not writing being the problem with writing, that's really gotten me thinking about I just need to set aside a time and get in the right mindset and do it. So I don't have a set time, but I'm hoping sometime soon.
Honestly, Ben, and just to know that, just start. That's just been like a philosophy of mine. Just start. And one of the reasons why is because you will not know all the things that will get in the way. And if you develop a plan and here we go. If you over-engineer something, then you're going to run into a roadblock. And then as soon as you hit a roadblock, then you're going to be super discouraged because you spent all this time planning it. So just start earlier than you think you need to. And then you're going to learn what those things are on the go. And the first time that you do it, it's going to be terrible. And the second time you do it, it's going to be terrible. But then it's going to get exponentially better. And pretty soon you'll be soaring. So that's just a piece of advice I would give on that. Like, just begin. Just begin.
And we're going to help you, Ben, because in the show notes, I'm going to link to your Substack. So I hope you'll have something on there for people to go to. How's that?
Well, I have something. I've got one Flash Fiction Friday up.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, did he do your Flash Fiction Friday?
Yeah, you've done at least one, maybe more.
Awesome.
I've done one.
Do this week's Flash Fiction Friday, and then you'll have another one.
All right.
That's addictive, by the way. Everyone should try that.
I'm glad that.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much for showing up, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jamie. Good talking to you all, everyone.
There we go. Am I on now?
Mm-hmm.
You are. Hello, Ben.
Hello.
My face isn't showing.
Other Ben.
All the Bens are.
The old man, Ben. Well, I guess I'm the elder statesman here, aren't I?
Oh, I don't know about that. Some of us look younger than we are.
Oh, I don't know. Who's 70 here?
Coot.
Good, because neither am I.
Scoot, can you get up there now, or can you not get up there?
It made me sign in again, so I don't know if I've even set up an account properly. Or
Okay,
so
I just promoted you again, so you can refresh, and then you should see that.
Okay, stand by.
Are you on a Mac?
I'm on a Mac, and I'm on. I'm using a old Firefox browser.
Do you have access to Chrome?
I do not, because of this is like a 2013 model Mac, so the Chrome is no longer compatible with it, or something like that.
Okay. So Safari is even worse. So usually there's something on the Mac that'll say allow this window to access your camera.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
and sometimes you have to go to system preferences.
System settings. Yeah.
System settings.
All right, let me look. I am a Mac neophyte, so
There's
this
Eric.
would be.
Jesse,
preferences
you're not
or
upside
something
down
like
today, Jesse.
I'm in system preferences.
So how are you not upset?
Microphone.
She just has to come to my house to not be upside down, apparently.
Woo-hoo.
Ah, fuck.
She's very small though. Very tiny.
Well, she's
And it's
she's sitting on
security?
the
Yes.
floor in my office.
Yeah, I found security.
And then like permissions, access.
So it says allow Firefox to access microphone, check. Allow
Yes.
Firefox to access camera, check.
Yes.
That's all.
It's all
hunky-dory.
checked, and it won't do it. Yeah, it's the browser's not compatible.
Well,
But-
it worked last time.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hmm.
And I don't know.
Why don't you know? I'm holding you personally responsible.
I don't know. I'm the resident tech support gal.
I demand answers.
Embarrassing.
There's going to be.
I'll give you an answer. You're just not gonna like it.
Eric, are you in? You need to choose your mic and your circle cam.
He's up there, so
Yep.
I think he's okay.
Well, Eric and I got together so I could give him permission to admin permission. So, ta-da.
How come I'm not showing up? Am I even? Can
You're
you hear
here.
me?
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
you. I hear you.
We see you. We hear you.
Oh, I'm the only one that. Oh, I'm the only one that can't see me.
Oh, interesting. The
Huh.
answer to all things Scope Wrench is refresh your screen.
And there's
Not
Ian.
bad for white.
We haven't got Eric or
3
Ian's
more
pictures.
minutes. Yep. Ian and Eric, you got to click on the mic and the circle cam down on the bottom, and the little arrow to the right, you can click on it to a drop down list and choose your camera.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
There we go.
Yay!
Ta-da.
Do I look grainy to you guys? I feel like I look grainy.
A little
Yes.
bit.
You look
Yeah.
cartoon.
Sasquatch cheek.
Maybe I'll play around with it a bit.
No luck, Scoot?
I cannot figure this thing out. I don't.
Whoa.
Nope, that's your square cam.
Scoot, try your square cam, see if that works.
Yeah, that's a good
Oh.
question. How do I do that?
It's the
So
other
there's-
other cam that's next to the circle cam to the
Oh.
right.
I've been alternating back and forth between them. Maybe that's part of my problem.
Ah.
Here, I'm going to the audience for a second. Notice me.
I can hear him clicking.
I know.
Here we go. Okay.
Click. Not that one. Not that one.
Setting cam is off. But I
There you
want-
go,
Just wanna
Ian.
get
That's a
this
lot
to say-
better. That's a lot better. You look totally clear now. Before
All right.
before you look like a video game character, I was like, that's kind of cool, actually.
You know what? I'm gonna. We're doing extreme troubleshooting here. Don't mind me.
The nice thing is that once everyone's done this once, maybe twice, then you're like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, except it worked for Scoot last time,
I
and now
know.
it doesn't.
Well, maybe because there were only 3 of us last time. I don't know. Would that matter?
No, won't matter.
There's
There's Eric.
Eric.
You see him.
Yep, we
There's so
see ya.
Icons before I could see myself, but none of y'all. Hey, how you doing?
I know. I'm late.
You're
just
not
gonna
late.
be a
You were
very
here.
Distinguished avatar.
You were not late. And Anne was not late.
So I stole my.
But I have to leave early. I have to leave before you practically start.
And I'm just trying to. I don't know why I'm pressing the buttons. It's not turning on. Come on, dang nabbit. I just have to talk like a distinguished gentleman.
Okay.
So you said you switched your camera?
Yeah, I plugged in a USB camera, which is, again, it's all showing in the preview, but it's just not letting me turn the thing on. I'm gonna try one more thing. I'm gonna close the browser. I'm gonna open it again. If I come in as
Wait. I did have trouble like that before, and Richard, the guy who made this, he said to What? Get rid of your cache in your browser. Try
Clear
that.
cache.
Right. I mean, in this economy, clearing cache is pretty easy. Well, okay, so now I don't know how to do that. How do I clear cache? I'm sorry. Thank you for your patience.
Control, hit F5. It's a hard refresh.
What about on a Mac?
Get a PC. Step one.
That's my answer. How do I fix my PC? Buy a Mac.